continuing, I just want to flag up the importance of getting rid of pauses. And this was a tip I picked up from Hank Green from the channel Vlog Brothers, who just like really reiterated this point. Because when we're watching videos on the internet, we're used to not seeing pauses. And if we see a pause, it kind of looks a bit weird. So I'm going to extend one of these cuts just to show you what it looks like normally and what it looks like with the pauses left in. Back to the channel and to another installment of the monthly favorite series. Today, board game that I've enjoyed this month. But before we launch into all of that, I just want to flag up that this video is being used as an example. Okay, so that's what it looks like currently. But if I just extend that, if my in and out points weren't that precise, this is what it might look like. Game that I've enjoyed this month. But before we launch into all of that, I just want to flag, that looks really weird, doesn't it? Like let's zoom in a bit. Having a gap at the start of a new clip is very, very weird. If you do want to have a gap, have a pause, let the viewer take their breath, whatever, you should put it at the end of the previous clip rather than at the start of the new one. So let's make this really tight, and I'm just going to drag this bit over to here. And that's quite nice. But before we launch into all of that, and I'll show you that if you want to add a pause, then we should add it to the end of this one. So you'll see the subtle change in cursor shape. So this bit, that cursor means that it's extending the end of the previous clip, whereas that one means you can drag and drop the new clip. So this is the sort of thing that you just become intimately familiar with the more editing you do. But let's drag this out a bit. And a board game that I've enjoyed this month. But before we launch into all of that, I just want to see, that wasn't too unnatural. It's not too bad when the pause is at the end of the board game I enjoyed this month. But in this video, I want to talk about blah, blah, blah. Whereas if it was board game, if it was like as follows, board game I enjoyed this month, but I want to talk about, it's just a bit more weird. So ideally, we don't want to have any pauses at all between A-roll clips because it just makes for a tighter, nicer edit. That's more of a pleasure to watch. But if we have to have pauses, we should have them at the end of a stanza, at the end of a clip, rather than at the beginning of the next one. Just a quick little point before we move on.